Today, the UFC White House card is set to go down on July 4th of 2026. But today we're going to dive off into a couple of interesting things, if you will, that are going on and are centered around this card. This would include Jon Jones being that guy at the office that just goes against all grains, all rules, and all protocol. Also, Conor McGregor being that guy at the office that you don't want to see on a break or a lunch break. You just want to avoid him altogether. That's what we getting ready to dive off into, and I'm going to connect those dots. All of this and more on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. What's up, guys? We right back at it. We right back with it. It's your boy, Matt, and we are here to dive into, if you will, the UFC White House card, which is not really a card yet. It's not set to go down until July 4th of 2026. Hopefully we all make it with the things that's going on right now. But nevertheless, a few interesting things have been brought up recently about the White House card. So let's dive off into it. First of all, Dana White, he's doing an interview. He's using his social media. He's trying to be young, hip, bold, doing his thing. Mr. Daddy Warbucks, $7.7 billion, sold his company. What we talking about here? Nevertheless, Dana White starts talking about, releasing AI pictures of what the layout would be. You know what I'm saying? How things would look there at the White House. You know what I'm saying? Where folks going to be sitting at. You know what I mean? Where the octagon going to be set up at. You know what I mean? He's talking about, I want to say, and I might be off on these numbers, but I think it was like roughly 5,000 people will actually be there on the sacred ground, the hollow ground there in D.C. Not really, but you get what I'm saying? They're going to have an octagon in the middle. You know what I'm saying? They'd have the kind of like we'll call it stadium, even though it's going to be outside, but kind of like the stadium seating around it. And then he's saying they're going to have like an arena, a 82,000 seat arena set up that's almost like a watch party for the show. Now, just from a production standpoint, I'm sure that you'd be watching the fight. Let's say there's an amazing finish. They cut to the 82,000 people erupting, going crazy, wilding out, right? So, all right, I looked at the AI photos. I must say it is interesting to see because it's right smack dab in front of the White House. So that's interesting to see. But what I find to be far more interesting is how they're going to build this card, right? Because clearly they're going to try to play their greatest hits, right? So you're going to see some grudge matches that were probably from 5 or 6 years ago that they're going to try to drum out there and try to rekindle them a little bit. They're going to probably play the hits as to fights that people have already seen, rematches, third meetups, maybe fourth meetups, in order to try to garner that nostalgia feel from the fans, get the fans hype. I saw the first fight. The second one's going to be better, and it probably won't. But still, that's what I feel like they're going to do for this show, right? And so, you never know what they're going to pull out. But we're not even going to speculate on that. We got plenty of time to speculate on the what could be as far as the different fights on the show. But let's talk about two fights that are kind of circling around this show. One of them being Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. And the other one being Tom Aspinall versus Jonathan Bones Jones. So let's get off into this. Now, when I was talking about the office and work and everything, this is what I'm saying. When I look at this Jon Jones situation, right? the UFC courts Jon Jones for like 2 years, maybe 2.5 years, on trying to make this fight between him and Tom Aspinall, right? To unify the heavyweight championship. But Jon won't play ball, right? Jon goes in there. He acts like he's going to play ball. He acts like he wants the fight, right? This is behind closed doors. So clearly in front of the cameras, he don't want the fight at all. But behind closed doors, he's meeting with the matchmakers. He's meeting with Dana. Not him specifically, but whoever represents him is meeting with them, and they can't come up with a number, with an agreement. He says he wants FU money. They finally offer him FU money. He agrees to do the fight, and then he pulls out the last minute. Then he's back in. Then he pulls out again. Then he's back in. Then he's retired, right? And when you look at this and you hear everything surrounding it, clearly it exhausted Dana White and everybody else of trying to get this man to commit to this fight. This would be the biggest fight, you know, in this current era of UFC. You know, we're far out of the Conor Aldo. We're far away from Conor Khabib. We're far away from Izzy Pereira won in the UFC. All of these big fights. You know, recently we got Izzy Drickus, which was huge. But you get what I'm saying? We're talking about deep-rooted grudge, feud, war. You know what I'm saying? Hatfields and McCoys, if you know that reference. We talking about two guys that don't like each other getting in the cage, and let's settle this, right? Jon agreed to it a couple of times and then pulled out a couple more times. So with that being said, also Tom Aspinall spoke out about this and said he started 3, maybe 4 different training camps trying to get ready for this fight based out of the projections of when Jon Jones was going to fight. And it still never happened. It never worked. So my point for bringing this up is it reminds me of, like, you know, I've worked in the office a whole lot in my life, right? Your boy Matt up in the office, chilling at the cubicle, you know what I'm saying? And what I find to be very interesting about Jon Jones, because now Jon Jones is, now once he heard about the White House, homie is diving back in this. And he's Dana White has gone on record, says Jon Jones has apologized to him for the negotiations from the last fight. He's actually apologized. You know what I'm saying? He tucked his tail between his legs and apologized. Said he was sorry that he was hard to work with and they couldn't get the fight done. Credit to Dana. He's staying strong right now, and he's saying he doesn't want Jon Jones on the White House card because he can't rely on him. And clearly, you know, with all the entities that would be attached to a show like this at the White House, they need the fighters to come through. They need them to come through. No last minute injuries, no last minute pullouts, no you in the midst of a divorce and can't go through with it. No, none of this, my wife's having a child, none of this. They want you front and center, ready to fight. You know what I'm saying? So they can't take any chances on a guy like Jon Jones. And this is where it gets funny when it relates to the office, because I've seen this happen so many times in the office. When you work in an office, in office culture, for the most part, you're surrounded by people that believe in that office culture. They believe in those office rules. They believe in how certain things are handled. And if you've been working in offices long enough, like your boy Matt, you've seen characters come through the office, and maybe your boy Matt might have been a few of those characters, you know what I'm saying? But you've seen characters come across that don't go by the office rules, the office politics. They don't do things the way that everyone else within that office culture does things, right? Because just maybe this dude or this lady is from the other side of the tracks. You know what I'm saying? Maybe they from a different walk of life. You know what I'm saying? But, hey, man, they apply for the job. They got the job, and they up in there. You know what I'm saying? This is my job. This is where I work, right? And so But that doesn't mean they're going to play by the office politic rules. That don't mean that they're getting ready to sign up for the potluck. You know what I'm saying? That don't mean that they are there truly for the company outing, or that they're even going to show up to the company outing sober. You know what I'm saying? People play by different rules when you're not really subscribing to that office culture or politics, right? And that's how I look at Jon Jones. Because in this scenario, to me, he is that guy in the office that totally, whatever is the right thing to do, whatever makes sense, whatever is logical as it relates toward his job, he's not going to do that. He's just not. You can't box him in. You can't force him to. He's just not going to play by those rules. And then when it doesn't work out for him, he's shocked. He doesn't get it. He doesn't understand it because he doesn't subscribe to that culture. So if you think you're getting ready to reprimand him or put him, write him up, put him on a write-up, put him on a performance plan, those of you all who work in the office know what I'm talking about. He's not that dude. He's not going to go for that. A chair might get turned over in the office. You know what I'm saying? A laptop might get thrown up against the wall if you keep on playing with him. He's not going to go by that. You know what I'm saying? He's going to find every loophole to make up for why he showed up late. Every loophole for why he took a longer lunch than everybody else. Every excuse. He's going to twist the truth. He's going to do whatever and drive these office folk crazy because he doesn't play by those rules. Y'all just happen to hire him in that field, but that's not how he plays. And that's who Jon Jones is to me. In the prime of his career, he's shoveling snow, if you catch my drift, and he's fighting a former Olympian in DC, Daniel Cormier. He's been up partying all night. He's got ladies of the night showing up. He got snow showing up. He got everything going on. You know what I'm saying? He's wrecking cars, wrapping them around trees and everything, and then going out there the next day and beating the brakes off DC. Going out there the next day after being up all night partying, blackout drunk, stayed up to 5 a.m. and shows up later that day to have one of the greatest fights of all time with Alexander Gustafsson. That's what he does. He ain't getting ready to be a 6-week, 8-week, 12-week training camp and abstaining from, drugs and sex and alcohol. No, that's not him. He doesn't subscribe to your office rules or your politics. He's going to do it his way. And when he gets caught up, because inevitably we all get caught up if you live that role, he doesn't really see the problem with it. He doesn't know why everybody's tripping. That's what you're dealing with now, right? That's what they've always been dealing with Jon Jones, but especially now, and that's why he's so much of a liability to try to throw on this White House card. Now, let's flip the script. Let's talk about two other men. Let's talk about Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler, he's that guy that you never want to see coming to the party, right? He's that guy that when he starts walking into the party, when he shows up, you're not happy to see this man because he's going to come in, he's going to get a beer, he might get two, and then he's going to get to shooting off at the mouth, and he's going to speak in the poster that hangs at your dentist's office type way. It's all going to be about motivation and innovation and being ahead of the curve and being an alpha and, forge your path. You know what I'm saying? These weird things where, like, you look up on the wall when you're sitting in the dentist's office, there's a wolf on a plane. Not an airplane, but a plane, like a prairie, like that type of plane. You'll see a wolf, and he'll have snow on his snout, and there's trees, and it's like a forest, and there's snow on the ground, and he's sitting there, and he's got this evil wolf look. Right? And then underneath, it'll have something stupid written like, the wolf doesn't make his way through the forest. The forest makes its way to the wolf. You know what I'm saying? Something stupid that don't even make any sense. But, guys like Michael Chandler, like, that's the type of guy I am. I don't bring the fight to the fight. The fight comes to me. Like, one of these weird dudes that talks weird, and you're like, that don't even make any sense, my dude. Like, excuse me, that don't even make any sense. Like, what are we doing? That's the type of dude he is, right? And this Michael Chandler, Conor McGregor fight, now Dana is for this fight. He's for this. And both men, definitely Michael Chandler's for it. Michael Chandler's been chasing Conor McGregor down more than the police for the last 10 years, right? So it's like, bro, he's definitely down for the fight. Supposedly Conor's, back in better spirits and better health, and every now and then you see a little quick training video come out as if he's training a year ahead of time. But it probably would take a year to get his body back in shape after all the rails and lines and everything he done did. You know what I mean? I ain't talking about trains. But, bro, they're trying to tout this fight that they're going to fight at the UFC at the White House card. And it's like, who's really trying to see that? Like, no one cares about Michael Chandler anymore, other than when you see a Michael Chandler fight, it's going to be crazy. So he does have that working for him, because homie doesn't have a game plan. Homie doesn't even display any sort of fight acumen or anything. Michael Chandler just goes in there and throws. And then you look up and 5 rounds have passed, and generally he's never the winner. He's looking all beat up, looking all sad. Then they put him on the microphone and he says something about America and how Americans got to keep moving forward and he's not going to stop. And then he calls out Conor McGregor. That's generally what happens in a Michael Chandler loss, because Lord knows he don't win fights. So then you got Conor, who there's no need to even talk about Conor, because he's been globetrotting the world, railing, lining, and doing some other dastardly, nefarious things. You know what I'm saying? Who's really trying to see that fight? I mean, yeah, if you're going to lock Conor in the octagon, I'm sure, yeah, of course we would watch. I mean, the whole card is a spectacle. So you're going to watch. But is that really the fight? Like, you know what I'm saying? Is that really it at this point? You'd rather see Conor and Justin Gaethje or something like that. Really, you don't want to see Conor at all. But it's like, you get what I'm saying? Very, very interesting. That's why I say Conor McGregor, definitely along with Michael Chandler. They're the two dudes at the office. It's a break, a little 15-minute break, little 10-minute break, right? You want to go get yourself freshen up your cup of coffee. You walk in a break room, bro, you see Conor McGregor in there, all wired, eyes all big, looking all crazy, you know what I'm saying? Man, you ain't trying to stand in the break room the same time as that dude. You don't know what his conversation's going to be like. You don't know what he's going to talk about, what he's going to bring up that might get everybody fired. You know what I'm saying? So you avoid that dude. Same thing, you go on your lunch break. You might be walking through the cafeteria, or maybe you go to the restaurant that's close to your job, right? You walk in, and then out of nowhere, oh man, is that Mike over there? And then here come Michael Chandler, ruining your day. He comes in, he's talking positive about the job. He's talking about things he's going to suggest to do with the boss, different things, different changes y'all can make to y'all's processes that's going to create more work for everybody. He one of them dudes. Bro, get him up out of here. Man, watch out. We not trying to see all that, man. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see what they're going to try to put on this card, who they're going to not let on this card. So it just struck me something interesting. Dana White was talking about it. I thought I'd come in here and share my little perspective on it. Please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think. We got UFC Perth going down this weekend. Definitely if you got any thoughts on that, let me know. Check out my last video where I broke down the main event of that show, or at least what was at stake for it. And once again, I do want to thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. And I check you next time. Peace.